Hello, welcome back to the Upset Special of the Transfer Portal CFB presented by No Contact CFB. As always, Liam Blutman here, joined by Dylan. We haven't seen him on the Upset Special since 2022. Welcome back.
Thanks, man. It's nice to hear Liam's hello at the beginning of every video. So now I feel like I'm officially back.
I need to start doing howdy or something and switch it up. Whatever. Nonetheless, it's just me and Dylan today, and our special guest, which will be joining us quite shortly. Pretty sad that it's just us two, but we'll make up for it with some incredible picks or awful picks. I don't know how this will go. We can't really tell the future. We just kind of act like we do, and then we'll kind of reconvene and see how we do. But it's a really good slate. It's a very good slate. But before we get into it, let me just recap our records and what was going on last week. Oh my goodness, Josh. Our guy Josh, wearing the St. Peter's Peacocks home field shirt, decides I'm going to fully immerse myself into the basketball world with these upset picks. Virginia over Maryland. Nope. Villanova over UCF. Nope. He's now 0-4 on the season. Parker dotted Florida over Tennessee. Went Georgia Southern over Wisconsin, a pick I really expected. And hey, Georgia Southern was up in that game, and then Davis Brin was like, "Yeah, I got 6 turnovers in me." Parker 2-2 on the season. Matt joined us for the first time. Mississippi State over LSU. That game did happen. And South Alabama over Oklahoma State, an easy win for the Jaguars, bouncing back from the Tulane loss. That puts Matt at 1-1. I also went Mississippi State over at LSU. Yeah, that was bad. I should have just done Florida. And I took Queens. I took the Gales of Queens in Kingston, Ontario, in the Canadian college football world to beat basically Alabama on Barry Bonds PEDs, Western and of London, Ontario, the Western Mustangs, big party school. Queens led the game with under a minute left and gave up a touchdown with like 20 seconds left. And I don't really want to talk about that. Now I'm 1-5. Dylan, you're here though. Let's get some wins.
Absolutely. So before we start, I just did something before we started. So I feel like I've known Liam and the teams that he supports for a while. I've been on a lot of videos with Liam, so I find him sometimes kind of predictable. So what I'm doing is we each have two upset picks. I wrote down the two that I think Liam will pick. I guaranteed to have one of them. The second one, I could be wrong, but I wrote him down. So when he picks his, I will show it on the screen and see if I am right. So they are written right there. Am I going through mine first?
If you would like, unless you want to get straight up into the prediction or save that for more suspense.
We'll save it. I'll jump into
Okay.
mine first. One I think is logical. One I think is absolutely insane. But I'll start with the logical one. You probably won't agree with it, but I'm feeling pretty good about this one. UCLA has lost the last three games in Salt Lake City by a combined score of 141 to 44. It has not been a
Not
friendly
very good.
place for the Bruins.
Not
Yes.
very good.
However, comma, I am feeling very, very good about this Bruins team right now. Honestly, more than I ever did last year. And last year's team was really good, but this team just has a fresh feel to it. There's a lack, I don't want to say a lack, but there's not very high expectations, especially very early in the season when they started Ethan Garbers for some godforsaken reason. Dante Moore looks the part to me. That running game looks lethal. The defense looks as good as it's ever been. Utah is a team that I always think super, super highly of. Obviously, they've got injuries everywhere. They've still gotten some decent wins to start the season. I'm just not sold on Utah yet. I think even if Cameron Rising does come back this week, I still feel like you're going to see a pretty rusty Cameron Rising against a pretty stingy UCLA defense. So, with that in mind, I think UCLA pulls off the upset at Utah. Utah, I believe, is 4.5 point favorite as of right now. UCLA's red zone defense has absolutely been just shut down, locked down. I think it's 2 touchdowns and 7 red zone attempts. I think that will be the difference in the game. UCLA gets a stop in the red zone to end the game. And then my crazy one,
Wait.
nobody's.
Not yet. We gotta talk about the pick first.
Okay. All right.
And then we'll
This is
go to
my
me
first
and then
time
we'll
here.
go special guest. Yeah, you're good. You're good. Okay. One, I don't know how I feel about the game. I have to pick the game on our preview podcast in a few hours with Taylor. And I don't know what I'm going to do, what direction I'm going to lean in. When I'm looking at this game, obviously, like Dante Moore, we overuse the word special and everything, but using the word special for Dante might be an understatement. He is just truly one of one. How calm and poised he looks with the ball placement. I'm very excited to see him against better competition, especially a tough defense like Utah and the physicality that they bring in, stingy secondary and everything. Cole Bishop's going to be a good test for him. He's going to try and bait him into making some bad throws. But UCLA's pass rush really got after it against Coastal Carolina. Coastal's offensive line was just completely unmatched there. If Latu and the UCLA pass rush with the Murphys and everything are able to overwhelm a really solid Utah offensive line, I mean that's going to put so much pressure on Utah, man. But UCLA secondary worries me. So like if the pass rush isn't getting there, I think Utah could pick them apart, whether it's Nate, who I'm a really big fan of, or whether it's Cam. Um, look, I respect the pick though. How can you not? I think it's a good pick.
I know you're, a UCLA guy, and I know you're often,
Pessimistic guy, yeah.
yeah, I know you're often kind of put off by saying, "Oh, UCLA is going to win this big game." Like I know you are a lot more of a realistic fan, and I respect that. And usually this is not a game I would pick UCLA in, even. Having talked to you about UCLA over the years and watching the Pac-12 year after year, it feels like this is a game that UCLA typically wouldn't win, especially in Salt Lake City. Like I said, they have historically not done very well there. This is really just a feeling. I think this team has a lot of promise, and I think they'll make a statement on the road against a really tough opponent, with or without Cameron Rising. That's a tough opponent. I think this is going to act as a signature win for Chip Kelly, and I think they'll be inching towards Pac-12 contender status with a win like this.
Yeah,
Oh, my
I
light
get
just killed itself.
I think it comes down to if UCLA's pass rush can generate enough consistent pressure on Utah. For my first pick, so after Dylan told me he was writing two down, I realized, oh shoot, you know what? I didn't know what I was gonna pick when we started the call and everything. I genuinely didn't know the direction I'd be heading in. Once I started looking, I figured, oh yeah, he definitely got one of them right, even though I had no idea where I'd be going. Preston Stone and the Ponies to beat TCU. That's going to be the first one. I know 100%, 98.3% chance that Dylan wrote that one down.
Hang on.
See,
I
he
gotta,
did write it down. I into it.
can we see that? There we
Yeah,
go.
he knew where I was heading before I even knew where I was heading. I picked SMU a few weeks ago to beat Oklahoma. I felt that was worth the risk, a 16.5 point underdog with SMU, just kind of getting in there against an Oklahoma team who maybe was going to overlook them and just sleepwalk through non-conference play. I don't know. The game was 14-11 though, and SMU looked really dang good defensively. Their front seven is no joke. I think TCU is going to have a lot of trouble against a really underrated SMU defense. And seeing what I've seen, like I'm a sicko, dude. I've watched all three SMU games. They've played two stinkers and they've played Oklahoma. I've been in there for 180 minutes watching this team because I am infatuated with friend of the program Preston Stone and the NFL capabilities that he's got and just a dynamic duo that he and Jordan Hudson are. And SMU's got all the pieces on offense. Preston Stone, hey man, go throw for 600, 500. I don't know. I don't care. He could light this defense up like Shador did against TCU. It's a very overrated TCU team coming into this season. 2022 doesn't mean a thing. They're still getting AP top 25 votes. Blows my mind. Blows my mind as much as Florida being ranked does. Maybe not as much as that. That's another story. But SMU again, really good opportunity here. Battle for the skillet. Tend to play some close games. SMU is getting 6.5, 7 points here is kind of ridiculous. With I just think SMU straight up the better team. Like, of course, I'm going to pick them. Go ponies. Pony up tempo. Drop 60 on them. I don't know. Just win this game. Is there anything about TCU that you could be somewhat confident in? A few of their
Mm,
linebackers.
I think they've got solid linebackers. I really like Josh Newton at corner, but overall, that defense doesn't really move the needle for me. Obviously, the Colorado game, they got picked apart. Chandler Morris, you never really know what you're going to get out of Chandler Morris. I think at his best, he can keep them in that game for sure. I think they'll be in that game. Either way it goes, I think it's going to be a close one. I don't see one team blowing the other one out in this one. Um, I do think SMU is the better team, and I would pick this one too, but I don't think it's by a huge margin necessarily. But TCU's defense, I think, is going to have a lot of trouble in this one. And I'm curious to see how good SMU's defense really is because Oklahoma, to me, that was the only game I've really watched in depth with SMU so far this year. And their defense, I mean, Oklahoma looks to be back offensively. Everything seems to be clicking there. So I think that was just kind of they're overmatched a little bit.
And they
But
still like
against,
held their own for 3 quarters. They played
yeah,
really well. It was 14-11, then kind of got away from them after a big run resulted in a fumble. And then I think Oklahoma just scored after that. And then I think there was a deflected interception that Stone threw that Oklahoma took advantage after that. Like that game was so much closer than the final score, 17 points would indicate. And that just as an SMU guy coming into this season, just send us to the New Year Six. I'm all aboard the Pony Express, man.
yeah. So that was when I was starting to look through my picks. As soon as I saw that match, I'm like, oh, I can't take that one. Liam's got that one. And then when we hopped on the call, he's like, I don't even know what I'm picking. But I'm like, I do. I got this. Let me write this one down. So I
I
wrote that one.
we're
And it,
going to our special guest next, and the first spin, because it is the random wheel of 133 teams, doesn't result in an upset either way. It was Tulsa Northern Illinois.
oh,
That doesn't result in an upset, but the second spin could get some fans really riled up. It just landed on a fan favorite.
ooh, okay.
Vanderbilt, 14-point home underdogs against Kentucky, coming off what might be the most electric game that nobody watched. Vanderbilt UNLV. That was, as someone who actually watched it, that was art. That was a Scorsese level film. Vanderbilt didn't win that one in the end. They squandered a 17-0 point lead. How could they rebound? Beating Kentucky? Kentucky's looked a wee bit sluggish.
Yeah, yeah. Vanderbilt. I watched the moments of the UNLV Vanderbilt game that didn't matter. I missed the entire end of that game. I think I watched shortly after halftime, and most of the third quarter, and then I was flipping through other games because I think the Oregon game was on at the same time, so I was watching that. But this one I don't particularly hate. I I like what I've seen from Vanderbilt at times, and then it seems like there's other times where it's kind of same old Vanderbilt. Offensively, I think it's a really good team. I like what AJ Swan's done. I think the run game with Cedric Alexander, the true freshman, that guy's got a lot of promise. I think he could be RB1 by the end of the year, if not
Could be.
sooner. And then Kentucky was a team I was crazy high on to start the year. And then coming out of the gate, they looked very sluggish against a really bad Ball State team. Did not look any better against Eastern Kentucky. And then Akron, it took them a little bit, but they got into it against Akron. But offensively, they're loaded with weapons. I think Devin Leary needs to be a little bit more consistent with his ball placement and decision making. Defensively, I still think it's a really solid team. But yeah, I could see Vanderbilt pulling off this win and kind of exposing Kentucky as maybe an overrated team. Um,
Hey, the
I usually
SEC as a whole, wee bit overrated right now.
Oh yeah, and it definitely feels like we're due for one of those weird SEC upsets. I know Florida beat Tennessee. I wouldn't
That
categorize
was
that as
so
weird.
expected.
Yeah, I wouldn't
I'm
categorize
such
that
an
as weird.
idiot for not picking this last week. Nonetheless, Vanderbilt riding high right now, 1 game winning streak over Kentucky.
There we go.
Let's
Yeah.
go make it 2 per the wheel. Well, let's hear your next pick.
Yeah. So people are going to castrate me for this, and
Oh
um,
gosh.
I I don't really have a logical reason to pick this game other than Texas is bound to fall in my mind. I am picking Baylor to beat
Oh my
Texas in
gosh.
Waco.
You are a
Texas,
captain.
yeah, Texas is a 15-point favorite. Um, People have given them the crown that they're back. It just feels like the time for them to fall because they're unanimously expected to win this game. And I can't say I blame people. I mean, this Texas team does look like the most complete Texas team we've seen in a while. They had a little bit of early struggle against Wyoming. That Wyoming team is a tough out. I will give them credit. Baylor, I have no feelings towards Baylor. I don't like what I've seen from Baylor. I think the run game is really the only bright spot of that team. And I think that's where I could see Baylor winning this game. However, it's just something about the history of Texas football since like 2016, I'd say. Since Joe Tessitore screamed, Texas is back, folks. It just feels like every year now, Texas has this game. They are unanimously picked to win in the Big 12, whether they are back or not. It just feels like that's the one they lose. I think this is probably the one, even though like I said, I don't have any feelings about Baylor positively except for the run game. That's really it. And again, I was talking about it with the Vanderbilt Kentucky game. I feel like we're still waiting for that weird upset. Duke beating Clemson. I feel like a lot of people, real college football fans, knew that was coming. Colorado over TCU, I guess, would be the weirdest one we've had so far. Not really, but it just feels like we're due. Texas has hype. Baylor doesn't. It just feels like it's perfect timing for a Texas loss. I'm not rooting against them, or I'm not saying that I am, but I don't know, man. Baylor's won the last 2 games in Waco. This Texas team, I, a lot of people are already putting them in the playoff. It's just a gut feeling for me. No
Okay.
logic whatsoever, just a gut feeling. People are going to kill me over it. Whatever. I'll probably be a one and done on the upset special because of it. Texas is probably going to win by 45.
That prime time slot on ABC though, something's got to give. There's got to be something that people flock to watch. If Notre Dame, Ohio State's a wee bit of a snoozer.
For the second year in a
Um,
row.
yeah, I mean, I honestly I could pick Notre Dame, but I would hate myself because I don't think I could actually consider that an upset in the slightest. Um, but dude, it is becoming tradition. The Long Island Sharkies are always getting brought up on the upset special. Baylor only scored 30 on those fellas last week. What the heck was that? Baylor looking past the Sharkies and looking ahead to the Longhorns to go and smack them? I don't know. I just had to get the
It's
weekly
just
Long Island Sharkies reference in there. I missed
it's
the
just
mark.
weird. That's the only reason why. It's just weird. We're due for a weird college football upset. Yes, I know they lost to Texas State, who I think very highly of. I've loved what GJ Kinney has done already. I think that team is pretty good. I was not that surprised that Texas State beat Baylor. I'm sure other casual fans were. I wasn't. Um, the Utah one, I actually thought Baylor was going to win that one for the majority of that. And I think that Baylor team, even though offensively they weren't really doing much, I felt like that is a team that I could see pulling off a couple upsets. Um, if the offense is clicking, even if it's Sawyer Robertson, who I think has talent, I can see the promise there. It's just a consistency thing. In the run game, if they lean heavy on the run game, I think the sky is high for an upset this week. I think once they go to UCF, I think they're going to get absolutely blasted. That's just the weirdness of the Big 12 this year to me. I think they could beat a top three team in the country one week and then probably get blasted by UCF the next week.
I respect it. That's a bold call. You gotta love bold calls on this. I think my next one is a bold call, but before I say it, I would like to guess what you wrote down for my second one. I'm gonna guess that you think it was going to be Ole Miss over Bama.
No, it was not.
Was it? Dang it! Was it
Mm-mm,
Washington State?
mm-mm.
The heck was it then?
Group of five.
Okay. Well, mine's an independent.
Oh.
Yeah. Talking about a team that might be looking ahead 7 days away. Actually, wait, hold up. Yes, my math is correct. 7 days away. I'm thinking that a team who resembles me in a sense with Otto and all the orange could be looking ahead to more orange foes in Clemson on a you're hosting Clemson in the dome in a week. You could overlook the Army, can't you? You could do that. 14-point underdog Army. I gotta be honest, dude. It's bad. I'm acting like Dan. I'm infatuated with the Service Academy football in 2023. Air Forces stole my heart. I've got them as the number 25 team in the country right now. Hey, Boise State's failed me big time. They got to make some major changes there. Air Force might just be my favorite team. My number one team in the Mountain West right now. They have a track star quarterback. It's just a joy to watch. Navy, Dan and I both agreed they're underrated going into the year, think that they're going to be better than people think. And I think that they've proven that, even though they got smacked by Notre Dame. I think they proved in, the first, half that they're going to compete, that their offense is pretty solid. They should have beat Memphis. They got robbed by the chain gang. Could have been a touchdown throw to win it after that. Awful call. Then I almost picked that game last week too. But then Army. I don't know. It's not going to make sense to me if you told me it was going to happen in August. If I'm looking back on it an hour after the game happened and I watched the whole thing, which I did not, or you tell me right now, or you tell me at the end of the season, how on earth did UL Monroe beat this Army team? I'm not going to have a clue. I'm not going to have an answer. I'm just going to chalk it up to college football. That's it. This Army team, after watching them against UTSA, I don't care that Frank Harris and DeCorian Clark didn't play, because that's not what this is about at all. Army's offense, the shotgun based rushing attack option, is going crazy. People look at this and they see Army's taking 90+% of the snaps from the shotgun and they say, oh, the game we all love is ruined. America's over. There's nothing to be joyous about in life anymore. I say, watch the Army offense and tell me you don't fall in love with it like I have. Tell me you don't fall in love with Isaiah Alston mossing a poor fella, as I believe he's averaging 30 yards per catch this season on 8 grabs. I believe he's an NFL talent and just a ridiculous player that is reaping the benefits of playing at Army and being the star of his team and going out there and blocking at a high level, like a Josh Lingenfelter, who could be the best blocking tight end in the country. But how about when you see the tank, not an Army tank? No, 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 that'd be silly. Jacoby Buchanan, who's more powerful than a tank that they would use in war. You see that fella run the football, you run away. You don't want to be in that path. He'll run you over. He'll pick up a easy first down or touchdown. There's something going on with Army. I love watching this team. I don't know what has happened to me. I love watching Army. Aronde Gadsden's out for Syracuse. They're coming off the highs of a win at Purdue. Garrett Schrader feeling himself, naked bootleg maestro, the hottest quarterback in the country, people are saying, looking ahead to Klubnik, Dabo, and the evil empire that is Clemson coming to the dome. Yeah, you lose the Army.
People saying Garrett Schrader's the hottest quarterback in college football.
He is.
Right. I hate
Yeah.
that, but that's okay.
I don't know if he actually said that, but so sorry if You didn't say that, Garrett, but we get
I mean, I
mentioned.
know
People are saying it.
he went nuclear against Purdue, and I respect what he's done so far this year. He is not the hottest college football quarterback right now. Come on.
People are saying it. Somewhere people are saying it.
I am an Oregon fan, and I it's Michael Penix Jr. Like that dude is the Heisman frontrunner and the hottest college football quarterback right now.
Hey, I
So
agree, but if people want to say it's Garrett Schrader, let them have it.
let him cook.
If they want to say it's Mark Gronowski, let them have it. They're right. Javon
Um,
McCoy.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm quite surprised that you picked that one. I will show you what I thought you were gonna pick.
I don't even. Oh, see, because I don't count that. I don't count that either. I think this Troy team is just kind of sneaky. I don't understand Western Kentucky being an underdog here. It was kind of the same thing as last week, where I could have easily picked James Madison over Troy. It's the same situation. Right. Yeah, James Madison was like a 2.5, 3 point underdog. I didn't really understand it. They win 16-14, but they really controlled the entirety of that game. I don't think Troy's defense is actually legit taking a step back this season. I don't know what's going on. A reason I was so low on them going into the season, uh, if you're a elite defense that has this identity, we're going to win all these low scoring games and leave it up to coin flips. You're not actually going to win that many games. And it's such a outlier when you do, like they did last season. So I just didn't think Troy was going to be very good coming into the season. It kind of looked like I thought, even giving up more points than I thought. I think Western Kentucky's going to smoke them after the bad taste of the Ohio State loss. Like Western Kentucky should put up 35 plus in this game and not look back. I don't know, like a 38-23 kind of final score or something around there. I'm just not in on Troy at all. So I couldn't do this.
I
It
know,
felt like cheating.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and I agree. I just think anytime you usually get an opportunity to talk about the tops, I figured you would take it, and I just gave you that opportunity. So
You
you're welcome,
did, and
America.
I'll have that opportunity in the preview pod in a few hours as well. Can't wait. All
Exactly.
right,
But
man.
your army pick is solid. I don't know if I would risk that. I'm all in on this army team as well. The
They're
passing
a
offense
lot
has been a
better
lot
than
of
I
fun.
thought they'd be.
Yeah, I knew they'd be a tough team regardless. The UL Monroe game, I don't understand either. That's an anomaly of anomalies. But offensively, I think this team looks as fun, whether it's explosiveness or whatever. I'm not calling it an explosive offense yet. I think I want to see it
All called
continue.
explosive.
If they run it
They
up
got
against
some
Syracuse,
bazookas,
oh, I'm well aware. I'm just saying, like,
firepower,
they've
gunpowder,
definitely they've
army.
definitely got that. Army puns. Look at you go. I just want to see them do it on the road at Syracuse,
Yeah,
14-point underdog. I want to know if it's legit. And I think it's legit. That UTSA defense is pretty solid. And I think that
yeah,
game is enough of kind of a needle mover to say Army's offense is like as good as I've seen it in a long time. I mean, Isaiah Alston is just he was one of the best kept secrets in college football. I think people are starting to realize that this dude is not just, oh, every once in a while he'll make this highlight reel catch. No, he's legit. Like he can do anything that you want him to do. There was the game against who was the FCS team they played? I think Delaware State.
Delaware
Um,
State. Yeah,
yeah, he had like 130 yards in like midway through the second quarter, and nobody had even done that for Army since like 2007.
yeah. He'd be such a highly regarded receiver if he played anywhere else. And like legit, I like people are just gonna see Army receiver putting up decent numbers, blah blah, whatever. They're not gonna think that it'll translate at another program or at the next level. But like, he is one of those rare cases where we're talking about an Army wide receiver that could start for a bunch of SEC, ACC, Big Ten teams, Pac-12 teams. Like, it doesn't matter whether he be the WR1 or the WR2. He'd be one of the best players in that team's receiver room with one of the highest ceilings on the team. He's just different. Like, he is an athletic specimen, 6'4". I mean, You're just kind of in awe watching him. You really are.
Yeah, and I think if he goes up against, um, it's not as good as it was last year. The Syracuse secondary lost some pieces for sure,
Yeah.
but they still have some talent. I think if he goes off on a Power Five team on the road, I think nationally, I feel like a lot of niche, college football fans like us know who he is. Um,
Mhm.
but I feel like nationally, if he goes off 120 plus, some highlight reel stuff, I feel like nationally people are going to know the name Isaiah Alston. They already should. I'm 100% on board with that. But I think nationally, the casual fan will know the name Isaiah Alston.
Hope so. That's the plan. The wheel speaks.
Give me something good.
The wheel brought something pretty good.
Wow. Okay.
The wheel's controlled by one named Dabo Sweeney. Clemson beating Florida State. Clemson's only a 2.5, 3 point underdog, but you got the number 4 team country coming in to the mix, who just struggled with Boston College, bad weather, and all the look ahead to Clemson. You had some key players out. I gotta be honest, dude. I kind of like where the wheel's at, even though I think Clemson's terrible, and I like this Florida State team a lot, but I don't know. I don't. There's just I. It's like your Baylor pick. I don't have any good football reasons to say that Clemson should win this game. It's like Florida too. Like, well, I don't know, because Tennessee was just extremely overrated. So I guess not like Florida, but it's just one of those games, man, where college football could college football when you don't expect it. You see the line 2.5. Florida State really be a 2.5 point favorite here. I would have thought maybe they're getting a touchdown, like a 6 point favorite. I don't know. I kind of like where the wheels at. I think it's worth the risk.
Yeah, I've been very, very high on Florida State for a long, long time. I forgot to wear. I was wanting to wear my home field shirt. I have a home field Florida State shirt, 99 national champs. Um, but
Gonna be living in the past after the wheels, right?
yeah, I don't know, man. This Florida State team can do whatever it wants unless it beats Clemson. Honestly, that is their biggest hurdle. Like, I know a lot of people probably aren't sold on them being like a playoff contender yet, even an ACC title favorite yet,
Because
because
it's Duke.
of that hurdle. Yeah, well, I don't
Yes.
disagree with you. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
nationally speaking, I'm speaking of the casual fans here.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State's not back until they beat Clemson in the eyes of most. And I can't say I disagree with them because that has been the one hurdle that Florida State just can't get over, especially on the road. If they can beat Clemson on the road, regardless of how good or bad this Clemson team is, if they can win in that environment, that should be a primetime environment. I don't know why it's a 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern game. It's just ridiculous to me. Um, if they win in that environment, Florida State to me is virtually a playoff lock. And I hate saying that, but given the field that we have this year, I feel like I can safely say that. Now, granted, that probably means that they'll drop a game that they're not supposed to, like Duke or Miami or something. I don't know about Miami. That's kind of a dumb one, but
Just Duke.
something weird. Something weird. Yeah, something weird might happen. Maybe they lose to Florida at the end of the year. I have no
No, they
idea.
don't. They don't. Don't worry about that. They don't.
I'm just trying to piss off every fan base, essentially, is what I'm trying to do today.
They don't.
My this is my first and probably last upset special of the year. So I'm just trying to roast everybody
Yes.
while I can.
So watching Florida State again, they did have key players out, like most notably Robert Scott wasn't playing. It's a very interesting matchup here though, because Clemson's defense is dang good. Like they have dogs everywhere. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the front seven or the secondary. They've got playmakers that will be in the NFL soon enough. This is the biggest test for Florida State's offense that they're going to see all season. What they have to go up against. Like we saw Clemson's defense against Duke. That was an elite Duke offensive line going up and against an elite Clemson front seven and a good Duke passing game, especially vertically against a really good Clemson secondary. And Duke was like, okay, we're just not going to throw the ball vertically. We're going to let our offensive line have to like succeed quickly. We're going to run the ball a lot, quick and short passing game. Let Riley cook with his mind to just kind of pick spots. We're going to make it do things really quickly. And what happened was Clemson's front seven won a lot, while Duke's offensive line won a lot. It was a very evenly matched battle. So that's something that Clemson's maybe going to need to get the edge here on Florida State's offensive line is for the front seven to win more than FSU's offensive line does. Like you got to make Jordan Travis have to. You got to get pressure on him. You really do, and you don't want to see Keon Coleman Moss. You just don't want to see that. You got to make sure Johnny Wilson can't just. He's 6'5", 6'7". Sorry, like just don't let him get open. It's very simple. You can't separate. Clemson's
Well,
got the DBs that are sticky enough to stay with them and keep them from getting loose. I think this comes down to how good is Florida State's run game going to be. And then obviously, like the Clemson offense is a whole nother story. Dictator Dabo and everything. That's a mess. I don't want to get into that. That's a mess.
I will correct you on something about your Johnny Wilson point. You can let him get open because he will drop the pass if he's open.
Okay, very
If
true.
he's
Yeah.
if he's
If you want to
contested,
say it, I'll let you say it.
if he's contested, he will make the catch. But if he's wide open, nah, nah,
You're
not
actually
really.
very right there. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I respect what the wheel cooked up here. I can't lie. I don't know
Seven.
who I'm picking in that game. I really don't. I mean, I have a
Um,
lot of tough decisions to make.
yeah, I mean it's I think it's seven in a row that Florida State's lost against Clemson. They haven't won on the road in 10 years there. And I think when they did that, they won by like 40 something. They blew them out the last time that they won.
It's like
Um,
these trends, like trends are cool and all. Like, who cares until it becomes something so consistent where it becomes such a mental edge that you have to overcome. Like, Tennessee can't win in the swamp. Like, that's just a given now. It can't happen. That's a trend that you actually have to buy in on. This Florida State Clemson trend might be something that we truly do have to buy in on if the mental edge is like too tough to overcome.
and maybe it's a case like we saw last week, and like you were talking about, maybe Florida State was looking ahead to Clemson because probably I think Florida State and Boston College, that's as big of a talent gap as there is in the ACC. I think the only one that might be bigger would be Florida State and Virginia. And so they should have won that game by 50, 40 plus.
Yeah.
But like you talked about, they're missing pieces. Boston College was really playing well. I mean, you have to give them credit. Castellanos was balling in that game.
Out of nowhere, Castellanos like looks legit since he's taken over for fan favorite surfer boy Emmett Moorhead.
Yeah. So one of my concerns, though, I have not necessarily loved how Florida State's secondary looked in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were giving up a lot of um, pretty easy conversions in the passing game. Ryan O'Keefe to me, I think is a very underrated receiver. He was doing work in that game, but otherwise, I think Florida State's secondary just has not really impressed me all that much compared
Very
to compared
suspect.
to yeah, compared to everything else on their team that they have. They have a lot of talent there. I mean, Fentrell Cypress is one of the better corners in college football. I want to see him prove that on a really big stage, but yeah, I'm not going to get into Clemson's offense either. If it shows up, I'll say this: if it shows up against Florida State, they win that game,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
It's like Florida State secondary is definitely a worry if their pass rush isn't able to get there rep after rep and really overwhelm Clemson's, decent offensive line and get pressure on Clemson and everything. But Clemson's style is like it's just such a backwards way of thinking too. We want all this quick, short stuff in the passing game. We don't really ever want to go downfield. They consistently recruit like 6'2" and up jump ball threats. So you should probably be taking shots downfield. So I don't even know if like the secondary is going to be a big thing here. It might not be because Clemson just straight up might not test it. If Clemson has an opportunity to let Klubnik sling it downfield, maybe we're talking about a different outcome here that Clemson the wheel could get right. Maybe they flip the switch too after the scare in the first half against Charleston Southern. Ooh, that was something, Clemson. But
Agreed.
yeah. But what before you get up on out here, what were some of the other picks that you had kind of looking at?
Yeah. I was kind of looking at Georgia State over Coastal.
Hmm.
Um, I absolutely love this Georgia State team. I I kind of felt like last year was a little bit of I felt like it was just kind of a 1 year just down year thing. I didn't think it was necessarily a sign of like a downward trajectory for that program.
Yeah,
I really like what Sean Elliott's got going on there, and that offense is clicking. I love the fact that their run game hasn't fallen off, even though they lost Tucker Gregg and Jemias Williams. Marcus Carroll is that dude. Darren Granger's running the ball and slinging the ball as effectively as you can do it. Coastal's defense is still suspect. I feel like we could see a shootout, and um, I don't know. I kind of like Georgia State in that one. 6.5 point favorite for Coastal at home. I don't know why. I'm riding the Georgia State wave a little bit. Um, I think that's probably safe to say that's the best competition that Georgia State's had to face. UConn
oh,
obviously was a bowl
very
team last
safe to
year.
say.
Yeah, UConn was a bowl team last year. They're just not there yet this year. And they were tested a little bit against Charlotte, but I think this Georgia State team is one of the underrated ones in the group of five, not just the Sun Belt. I could see them pulling off that win on Thursday night.
Yeah,
And
Dan and
then
I loved them going into last season. Was pretty sad to see it didn't pan out, but looking good at the start of this season.
yeah, and then one, I think that probably would have been my number three. I have this weird feeling Purdue's going to beat Wisconsin Friday
Yeah, that
night.
was also over here. Well, I kind of said that in August too. It was like when everyone was mad that I was saying Wisconsin was going to be spoiled dairy raid. So I just looked at the schedule and was like, okay, win, loss, blah, 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 blah. And I had this as a loss. So I think Purdue's bad, but Wisconsin got to show me something.
Yeah. Yeah, so those were probably my number three and number four. Otherwise, I didn't feel too terribly strongly. I have a weird feeling. It's not one I'd put many money on or anything like that. I just have a weird feeling Temple might beat Miami. I really don't know why. If we're
What
gonna get a weird
the?
upset, that one could be one I could see.
That's way
The
out there. That's
the
way out
Manny
there.
Diaz Bowl.
So the wheels got two of them. The
Mhm.
wheels got two leans. It likes it's buying into FIU, just buying into
I
FIU
don't
over
hate that.
Liberty. I kind of do. Oh my gosh, the wheel also likes SMU.
Of course he does.
Crazy. Yeah,
Everybody
of
does.
course it does. Who doesn't? Like I like Washington State. I think over Oregon State. I love both those teams though. Like having the pick between them really pains me. I don't like that at all. Why do they have to play, man? But this should be the real alliance. If
At least they're on
if the
Fox
if
and
the,
not Pac-12 Network.
very true, but if these two teams could just combine to become one Oregon Washington State Beef Cougs, like they might be a top three team in the country. Crazy, I know. They would win the SEC. Don't quote me on that, but no, I'm right. I also kind of looking at it. Well, I said Notre Dame. Like I just like Notre Dame to win that game, but again, I really wouldn't call it an upset at all. There was another one. Sorry, I'm looking for it because my brain don't work. Where the heck was it? Um, there was another one. Oh, BYU. I kind of like
Mm.
BYU over Kansas. I don't really like what I saw for Kansas at all lastly. Uh, and then against Illinois, I felt like they raced off to a really quick start. I think it might have been more a product of Illinois not showing up to the game and being prepared at all. And then there is no reason where Kansas should only beat that Nevada team. It doesn't matter if the game is played in Lawrence and Reno or on Pluto. It don't matter. Kansas should win that game by 65 minimum, like it's NCAA 14 on freshman difficulty. That game should never be close. I really liked what I saw from BYU last week in an SEC environment. Yes, it's Arkansas, and Arkansas is essentially overrated every single year now. But BYU in there as 8-point underdogs, got down 14-0 in the blink of an eye in like less than 14 in less than 4 minutes, and then weathered the storm and won a really tough, gritty ball game. Like I think in a Big 12 that's extremely mediocre, as evidenced by Dylan picking against Texas on Saturday. Why can't BYU beat Kansas? 9-point underdogs there.
I thought the spread was a
Oh
little
yeah,
weird too. I mean,
and
I
then
I would pick Kansas in that game. I'm kind of a Kansas homer,
you
but
are, yeah.
I that spread seemed kind of wild to me, especially given what BYU just did. Because I didn't honestly have very high expectations for BYU this year. Um, Keaton Slovis needed to prove something to me. I think their wide receiver core needed to prove something to me.
Love
And they're
Chase
starting to.
Roberts.
And they're starting to. Chase Roberts proved something to me last year.
Yep,
When there was injuries, I think it was that
against
Baylor game he popped
Baylor.
off. Yeah. And then he got kind of pushed back onto the in the back of the room. But I don't know. I really like what I've seen from BYU. That could be a really fun game. And that's kind of a
It
prove it
should
game to
be.
me for both teams.
I would agree with that sentiment. And then if I didn't say it, leaning towards Ole Miss.
Yeah, I that one's so weird to me because I just
I
don't see Alabama losing two at home. I know what their
I
situation is,
know.
but I just can't see it. It's weird.
I know. I think we've just got to look past the uniform and the logo and kind of think this team. If this was Auburn, oh my goodness. Everybody in the entire world is slandering them and saying that they're going to lose every game and don't deserve a top 20 ranking. Ah, I'm worried about Alabama. But hey,
I'm
well, yeah.
the masochist in me is kind of enjoying the downfall of Alabama, though. I still think that defense is really good, and I think Ole Miss is going to be tested for sure. However, I think it's vulnerable, more vulnerable than I would have expected at this point in the year. So I could see Ole Miss putting up some points. I don't really know if because isn't Jalen Miro going to be starting this week?
Yeah, he should be.
Yeah. So to me, the South Florida game was the weirdest Alabama game I've seen in probably since the Louisiana
Possibly,
Monroe game.
I could say ever.
Yeah. So I think if Milroe starts and he's like what we saw toward the second half of the Texas game, I feel pretty good about where Alabama's at. But if it's first half Milroe, give me Ole Miss.
Then just to recap our picks, you got
I got I got rid of my paper. Um,
oh shoot, okay.
I picked UCLA over Utah and Baylor over Texas.
Yes, the wheel picked Vanderbilt over Kentucky, Clemson over Florida State. Parker chimed in. He gave us his picks. He's got
Hmm.
Iowa over Penn State and Vanderbilt over Kentucky as well. And then I've got SMU over TCU and Army over Syracuse.
Time out. Time the F out. He picked Iowa over Penn State
Yeah, he did.
on the
He did.
road.
He did.
That is I can't process that. That's no. I wrote the Iowa preview for our magazine and started to feel a little high on the Iowa team. And then I watched them. I'm like, no, what am I
No,
smoking?
that team is not good, and I don't know why they are ranked. I don't understand it. Ferentz must be bribing AP voters. I don't know. AP voters, I have a lot of beef with. I will tell them straight up to their face that they need to figure it out and be better at what they do. I am consistently disappointed in them.
There is no coaching staff in America that is more complacent than the Iowa Hawkeyes coaching staff.
I might have one.
And I probably know who you're going to say.
Yeah, you could say it then.
Is it Ohio State?
Oh no, they're
No.
up there. Well, no, they're not up there because it's only one idiot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
Brian Hartline's not up there.
no, I guess. Well, if we're going with one doofus, then yeah, I guess I would say Ohio State. But I was going to say Virginia because of
No,
Tony Elliott.
that's fair. Um, but there's there's just no way. I like the Iowa defense, but it just does not match up with Penn State's offense in the slightest. I don't see it. And Iowa, honestly, I could see a better shot of Iowa getting shut out at Penn State than Iowa beating Penn State. 100%. I'd put money on that.
Hard to say no. I think Parker is hoping for an 8-5 one here. Like I
Well,
don't know.
Penn State's
Gotta be.
putting up more than that.
Yeah, they are. Hey, respect to Parker. If my national champs go out like this, I am a sad guy. To
Listen,
I mean,
if Iowa beats Penn
goodness,
State on the road, I might jump into a river. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. That
like
is one
Andrews
of
for
the
yeah.
that is I don't even know where the closest. Oh, I know where the closest river is here. We could, you know what? Screw it. Let's make it a bet. If if Iowa beats Penn State on Saturday, I will jump into the nearest river, wherever the hell that might be, legal or not. I will jump into a river if that happens, because there's no way.
I will double down. If Iowa beats Penn State, I will order the Chick-fil-A pimento cheese sandwich and eat it with the pimento cheese. I got it without it. I liked it, but cheese scares me, so I guess I'll do it.
Bearing today, aren't we?
Yeah, we really are. I went a little too deep there. Now I'm actually gonna have to sweat this game even if Penn State wins 24-0.
Well, I'll envy you if Iowa beats Penn State, I'll envy you as I'm, deep into a river. You're chowing
Yeah,
down on
but
a
like
sandwich.
it's not. It might not be as delightful as you'd think. I'm
There's
not like
levels.
there's levels to cheese as well. Cheese is good in certain situations and it's terrible in others. And I think the goat Dan Orlovsky would agree with me. I think Dan would agree with me. And cheese, it's not all it's cracked up to be unless it's on a pizza or something.
If you would have said like this is a sandwich with feta cheese on it, and you would do that, if Iowa beat Penn State, I would 100% say, okay,
Ugh.
that's fair, because feta is one of the worst substances on this planet.
Yeah, that's gross. But like, because I got the sandwich, but then I was like, I don't want the cheese on it because I was looking at it and I was kind of like, the stomach gets weird looking at the thing. So I
Your
didn't want to
stomach,
deal with that. Yeah, but
your stomach has
hey,
eyes.
yeah, it does. Nonetheless, that'll be it for the episode special week 4 in the books. Make sure to comment below some of the picks that you like this week, what we botched, what we you think we got right. I think we didn't go over this week. Bold take there. Thank you again. Make sure to like and subscribe. All that stuff means a lot. See you on the next one. Woohoo.